Yet another Friday, and episode 6 of the video is uploading to YouTube. That's taken me most of the morning and a good chunk of the afternoon, so it's taking away from my actual time to make things. I'm going to have to find more time in the week somehow to continue with the project. I don't yet know how I'm going to do it. Last Friday I kind of stopped when I ran out of battery power, so I've bought some new size C rechargeable batteries. They weren't cheap actually, but that's not how you do it. This ancient dirty old charger is the only one I've got that can recharge C batteries. It's quite good, but it doesn't actually give you any information other than a little LED red lights to tell you that it's charging. This one, which takes the AA and AAA batteries, that does actually go from green to orange to tell you when they're charging or fully charged. But weirdly, if they're not in at all, it also is green. It gives the fully charged signal. Strange. There's a lot of difference, and those are ones I've been mucking about with, rechargeable batteries that were actually dead. They do die after a while. They say they're like good for 1,000 recharges or something. They don't seem to be. You have to get the good ones, and there's a massive difference in what they will actually do based on this number, which is the MH. I don't know what MH stands for. That one is 2,150. No, MAH, milliamperes. I don't know. I've never been able to understand volts and watts and amps and how that works in electronics. I could never get my head around it in physics. One day somebody will explain it to me. I know that one's about the flow and one's about the work it does. But anyway, I will be able to carve up a lot more, and hopefully these will take lots of charges, because it starts to get a pain when the thing slows down. The other little thing that I did last weekend was I started thinking about my cut stone blocks and how to start making them look like stone blocks and not like these kind of perfect sharp cut pieces, to make them look like limestone. Now there is a video on YouTube. It is probably DM Scotty on the DM's Craft channel, and it's a few years old now, where he tells you to take stone blocks, put them in a tin with some sand and gravel and stones, shake it up, and that will start to sort of damage the pieces of foam and round them off, and give you a satisfying stone-like look. And I was very sceptical. And then I thought I'd give it a go, test it is the thing to do. Couldn't find a container. Searched the house for a suitable container and just could not find one that was a reasonable sort of size and was robust enough. And in the end, settled for a coffee jar. So in there is just kind of 2 or 3 small handfuls of horticultural grit and 2 or 3 small handfuls of horticultural sand from the greenhouse, and then just throw in a few of my blocks. I didn't want to throw in too many, because if that method isn't going to work, the way I've done it before, and the way I did it with the bricks on the chimney, is to keep them in their rod form. They look like Cuisenaire rods, if you know what those are, used in children's education. And and then to sand or file down the corner like that, or even just rub it down with your fingernail, and then cut it into sections and then sand off all the things. That's much easier than having to sand every edge of every cube. So if this worked, though I didn't expect it would work, it would be great. And I put it in the coffee jar and I shook it for a minute, and then I checked and I shook it for another minute, and to my delight, let's put the phone down for a sec. To my delight, this is the result. The blocks have come out with gently rounded off corners, and they're just what I wanted. Now, if I wanted them more rounded off, I could shake it for 4 minutes. And the fact that it was good enough after 2 minutes means if I'm doing hundreds of those, shaking the jar for 2 minutes, you know, stick some daft music on and loon around the room while I'm shaking, perhaps. It won't be too arduous. I'm really thrilled with the result, and that it works so well. It's not just pressing. My issue with foam is very often people are sort of inscribing lines on them, and after a while, they soften. It springs back. It has a memory. But this is actually eroding the edges. I'm not sure how my erosive substance will last, because the foam that's eroding off those will actually be getting into that. So over time, this abrasive media may have to be refreshed. It's also dusty, so yeah, they're a bit mucky, but that probably won't matter. They'll probably mix in with the paint and all, give it an interesting sort of variable texture, which is the objective. So I'm going to spend the rest of the day chopping up and abrading a lot more of those. It's another Friday, just uploading episode 7, and if my computer sleeps while it's uploading a video to YouTube, it actually stops and then struggles to restart. So while keeping one eye on that and making sure I go over and touch the touchpad every moment, I've made those. That's taken a while, and I'm going to need to count them. I've worked out that it takes 25 to do one circuit, but I'm going to have to count to find out how many that actually is. They're all nicely rounded off and a bit sandy. And that, you'll remember, is only the top sort of 3/5 of the tower. The bottom 2/5 is still under there. So I don't expect that's going to be enough, but I'd like to know if that is 1/10 of what I need, or 1/8 of what I need. The only way is going to be to actually get them all out of there and count them, and then divide by 25 and work on the height. And I've also been thinking about the mortar. Now the mortar is going to be done the same way as my chimney, which is, I can't even find the chimney anymore. Yes, the chimney, still under there. You see under the plastic. I just really like the way that mortar came out. So the mortar is going to be done the same way as that. But applying it evenly and constantly is going to be tricky. I started with that, which is a contact lens solution bottle. I was trying to find a cake icing bag, those little cake icing bags and nozzles that you use for decorating cupcakes. You know, it's fashionable to sort of, I don't know, do writing or things on the top of cakes with a very, very fine icing bag. Couldn't find one of those anywhere. Didn't want to use use one that's going to be used for food, because it's going to have glue in it and will probably wreck it. So that was a possibility. I didn't think it was quite good enough, so I bought this on eBay, and that was like £2, but probably more like £4. And the trouble is with both of them is, even when that cap's prized out, it's a bit tight. Getting my mortar, which is the light filler and PVA mixed together, getting it down in there is going to be nigh on impossible, I think, because there's like a buttery consistency. So unless I could maybe cut a hatch out of there and put the material in and then seal it up with tape, and I might have to do that, otherwise that's £4 wasted. Or I might have to buy a little cake decorating set, and they were actually surprisingly expensive. But first, got to count those. Right, I've counted them, or rather I got lazy and I counted, I guessed about half of what's in the tub, and I counted them. That is 170, so what's in the tub when I put those back in is 340. From now on I'll measure that by volume when they come up to that line. And then some maths. There need to be 25 blocks per circuit. That's measured out using by laying some out on the disc. The tower is 90 centimeters high. That's the first time I've ever measured that. A course is about 1.3 centimeters or 13 millimeters. That is done by laying out this column, estimating the size of the mortar gap, counting 10, measuring 10, dividing by 10, and they're about 1.3 millimeters as a course. So then the maths, there's 900 millimeters divided by 13 millimeters, resorting to long division to get an answer of 69. So there will need to be 69 courses of blocks, 25 in each course. That means I need to make 1,725. So I have got about a fifth of them made. I'm going to have to fill that tub to that line 5 times over, and probably make some spares as well. And if you wanted, I wonder what that was. That one is painted green because it is the measuring block. It is the archetype Blockus Primus, which I use when I'm cutting them to make sure that I don't become increasingly inaccurate. Whenever I want to check, I go back to that one original one. But there's a lot of blocks to make. It's late June 2021, and it's another Friday, and it's another truncated one. I've only got a few hours for the project, and I've got fed up with making wretched bricks. That, which is about a third or quarter of a 14-litre bucket, is 1 centimetre cubes. My calculations said I needed 1,725. My current weighing, and whether I try to do it by weight or by volume, I've come out to something like 1,340. I thought I had enough, but in checking today, it's still significantly short, and I've just had enough of cutting and shaking tubes of coffee jar of these 25 at a time with sand, and it makes a lot of dust every time you open the jar. So I've had enough. It has made me decide that I I'm going to do something I was going to avoid, which is the part of the back of the tower which is up against the building that you never see. I'm not going to make that in bricks. I'm going to use a chunk of the existing tower. It probably won't want to stay in its nice curved shape once it's cut out of the remains of the old one. I'm sure I'll be giving myself extra difficulties, and I may be saying, oh, I should have made those extra few hundred cubes. And if it's still not enough, the tower will just be a little bit shorter than it is at the moment. So next it is to take these and some black and red paints to try and mix up that sort of dark red colour that the stonework has all been done in, a red sandstone colour. And I didn't notice that I actually had two reds there. This is not cheap paint. In price look, you can see it's £2 a pot. But one of those is cadmium red and one is studio red. There's not a lot of difference in them. It will depend on how my camera's picking it up and how you're viewing it. But actually, the cadmium red is very, very slightly bluer than the studio red, which is probably a bit closer to a primary. But the difference is very slight. Doesn't matter. Actually, use that to my advantage, because I'll do half the bricks in a mixture of this and black, and half the bricks in a mixture of that and black. The only way I'm going to be able to do it is to mix up the paint, put it in the bucket. The bucket's the only container I've got big enough, so it's going to wreck my domestic bucket a little bit by having the inside painting red, and I bet you that red paint will flake off next time I want to use the bucket for something else. And then just hand toss it like a Caesar salad. Do you toss a Caesar salad? I don't know. I don't have culinary skills, but I think you probably do. And then tip it all out onto a sheet of polythene and try to spread them out so they're not touching, and let them dry. Yeah, it's going to be tricky and messy. I don't even think I've got any gloves. I'm going to end up having red hands for the weekend like a murderer. I do feel like murdering somebody sometimes. This is about half of them, and didn't need gloves because it occurred to me to stir with a stick. Duh. And the colour is a little bit too consistent at the moment, so I think with the remaining half I will do just a handful at a time, varying the mixture of proportion of black and red as I go. Just quite a generous amount of black and red in here, but then I just have to keep adding little trickles of water until it would cover well enough. I'm not quite sure you can see because of the reflections in this black bucket are strange, but they are actually the whitish that you can see at the moment is glistening reflection, but they are in flat light they are evenly covered. Hopefully they won't need more coats. I suspect they probably will, but it's working. Now I'll need gloves because I've got to tip all those out onto polythene and separate them. That's a half and a third, and the remaining sixth all coloured up, and now it's going to be a bit of a race against the clock as I squat down on the floor and try to separate those out before they completely dry and stick to one another. I expect it's going to take longer than it will take them to dry, but I'm going to do my best. It may well take a very long time. I'm listening to the Classic Ghost Stories podcast, which is recommended, always excellent.